in Baltimore and some fake football and hopefully getting Joe Flacco back out onto the field. And, of course, the Orioles will be keeping us up late into the night, and which buys us some extra time in the early evenings, especially with no basketball or hockey or football to be seen. And my man Bobby Sablehouse came on last week, and we talked about the 30 for 30 and the treatment of all things Dunbar and poets and poet pride and old videotape and old memories and current stories. And I thought, I'm going to go right to the source of this whole thing. I know he's retired right now. I don't know whether he's hunting, fishing, playing cards, or sitting on his stoop in Baltimore style, but he was a legend here on the playgrounds and certainly over at Dunbar High School, where I parked my car for a couple years as my wife fought cancer over at Johns Hopkins. So I don't think I ever parked my car out on Orleans Street in front of Dunbar. I don't think about this guy and the accomplishments. We welcome Bob Wade, the man, the myth, the legend, the longtime basketball coach at Dunbar, one-time coach of Maryland, and longtime Baltimore City employee. Retirement for you. Come on, man. What do you fill your days with? Retirement, right?
Good morning, Leslie. Just enjoying life. That's what I'm doing now. Just enjoying life. My wife and I, we're doing a lot of traveling. We have grandkids, so we follow them around and their quest to be student athletes. So that's what we do now with our time.
Well, look, when this story was going on back in the day and all of these players had made it to the NBA and obviously the pursuits from Wake Forest to Georgetown to Northeastern and all the kids you had there and then tragedies that have come since then, I think even back then, and I was just a kid with Kathy Frazier, at the News American and, hustling over there to see the Dozier boys play, and you were about to take the Maryland job and all that stuff was going on. It felt even then like it would be a good movie or a good story, and lo and behold, these 30 for 30s happened later in life, and it took a local kid in Bobby Sablehouse who was an athlete in his own right and a very well-thought-of quarterback out on the west side of town about 20 years ago to put this thing together. I mean, when your phone rings and a guy like me calls you, and I've known you 30 years, Bob, and says, let's talk about Dunbar in the 80s, is that something that still fills your heart wanting to talk about it? Because I would think that, you feel like you're talked out on it a little bit or all the stories have been told, but there's a whole bunch of young people that don't know these stories, Bob.
And it was a great era in my life. It was just a fantastic opportunity to work with some fine student athletes over the years. All I tried to do was follow my high school coach's footsteps, Mr. Bill Sugarcane. He was my high school coach. And the late Julia Woodland, she came to me and wanted me to come back to Dunbar to try to fill the shoes of Mr. Kane. And I had the opportunity to come back thanks to Miss Woodland. And I was able to, try to implement the same type of philosophy that Mr. Kane implemented. And that was, just hard-nosed basketball, make sure kids do what they're supposed to do academically, and try to do the best, one could do to get these kids moving on into collegiate ranks. And that's what I did. But it was a fantastic time at Dunbar. We had some tremendous student athletes, outstanding fan support, alumni support. We were like the focal point of the East Baltimore community at that time.
In the case of Sugarcane, tell me a little bit about him, because, his name comes up. I see his name on fields over in that area, when I drive by. I don't know as much as I probably should know, and I guess being a bit of a Baltimore sports historian in my own right over the last 25 years, that's not a topic that I've taken on, but I think behind the scenes of all of the machine that made Dunbar run, and you being a part of it, he was kind of at the heart of it, right?
Yes, Mr. Kane was he was a very successful collegiate player. He played a little professional ball, I think, with the Globetrotters and some of the other semi-pro teams. But he's originally from Washington, D.C., got an opportunity to attend Morgan State University, where he graduated from, and got a job in Baltimore, Dunbar High School. Built that program up from scratch. Was not fortunate enough to play at that time, that's the Maryland Scholastic Association. You recall what's called the MSA. Dunbar, Carver, and Douglas they were not allowed to play in that conference, and Mr. Kane had to kind of scratch up games. Played down in Annapolis, go over to Washington, D.C. to play Ballou and McKinley, schools like that. And then around 57, 58, those three schools were allowed to join the Maryland Scholastic Association. And from that time, Mr. Kane went on to dominate. He won the conference several years, retired the trophy. That it's a big trophy. It's similar to the Heisman Trophy. You have to win 4 legs on it. And Mr. Kane did it in like 5 years after joining the MSA. But he was a no-nonsense guy. You had to do what you were supposed to do. He was a very good tactician, and very simple in what he wanted to implement. But he was an outstanding man, and I sort of patterned my career after him. He became like my father, my surrogate father. I really looked up to him, and I went to Morgan. I attended Morgan State University on a football scholarship, and was fortunate enough to, move from there on into the professional ranks.
Well, you said no nonsense, right? I mean, when I think of Bob Wade, I think of no nonsense, right? I mean, and that's part of maybe what's changed 30, 35 years later, because there's plenty of nonsense in the world, right, Bob?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Now you got to be so careful, working with these young student athletes. Some of these kids are very moody. Some of the parents are very strong in their belief if their kid's not scoring 30 points a game, they get upset. But Mr. Kane was just a no-nonsense person. He laid the criteria. If you wanted to, if you lived up to it, then so be it. If not, you'd have to move on and not play at Dunbar.
In the case of this 30 for 30, they come back to you and say, we're going to make a movie about this. You can either participate or not participate. Bobby was calling me because there was really a lack of video from back in the day. I mean, I guess Keith Mills is out there running around with his dad back at Channel 13 in the day, and the Vince Bagleys and Chris Thomases and, Jack Dawson and the people. There was no Fox 45, back when in the early 80s when this was going on, and no one had video cameras or video tapes. I'm sure even the program over there didn't have the kind of money it would have taken at that time to have beta tapes or VCR tapes or for scouting or any of the stuff that's all very commonplace now everywhere. But just finding the old videotape, I think, was hard enough, and finding the stories that go along with it for you. How does it make you feel when you see a piece about that part of a movie made about your life and your youth, quite frankly, now that it's all gone for most of us?
It makes you feel good that someone like a Bobby Sablehouse would come along and have the fortitude to push he had his own production company, but he pushed ESPN to do a story on the 81, 82, 82, 83 team. Bobby was very persistent in his quest to have this documentary done, and but I applaud his effort, and along with Marquise, Daisy, and Sheldon Candace, they really pushed and tried to find as much information as they could. And you're right, they could not find any footage of some of those fantastic contests. The Camden game in which we went up to Camden, played them in their gym, and they had not lost a game in their gym in 15, 20 years, and we defeated them on their floor. And there was no film of that.
It's kind of like the Chamberlain night, right? Nobody's got any video of that, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Everybody was in Hershey that night. There were 100,000 people up there, but nobody saw it, right?
I'm telling you, and they even tried to get in contact with the legendary Sonny Hill. He did the radio for that contest, but they could not find any film footage of that event. But it's just great, and I really grateful to Bobby to really push the idea to ESPN to talk about the team, because it was a fantastic group of young men who really did a fantastic job of carrying on the Dunbar tradition.
Well, there's been so many things. I mean, I had Tommy Polly a number of years ago. We did a thing over at Sports Legends. I think I bumped into you there. That's probably going on 6-7 years ago now. And Ali Demois also wrote a piece, The Boys at Dunbar, a story of love, hope, and basketball. I've had him on the program. I think that was last year. Been a little while since I've had you on. Can you tell me the first time you laid eyes on Tyrone Muggsy Bogues when he was a boy? I mean, did you see in him NBA legendary sort of potential? I mean, the first thing you see is what everybody saw, which is, damn, he's short, but wow, can he move, right?
Yeah, well, Muggsy's siblings, his sister Sharon and his older brother Anthony, they attended Dunbar High School, and Muggsy only lived right across in the Lafayette Project, so that's where the family lived. And Muggsy would come over to the school and watch his brother and sister play. Anthony played on the varsity basketball team. He was an outstanding football player. He was a running back on the football team. So I saw Muggsy grow. Well, should say grow, but I've seen.
We're still waiting for him to grow.
I know, but it goes way back when Muggsy, when I first laid eyes on Muggsy. He would come over and he'd try to shoot around in the gym after practice or during the community. They had a community activity, where the community could come in and use the facility in the evening. And Muggsy used to come over and play little pickup games. And I would always tease him. I said, how many years do I have to wait for you? He said, not long, Mr. Wade. I'm coming, not long. But, his family was there, and he would support his family. So I've known Muggsy for a number of years prior to him enrolling at Dunbar.
You know what's an amazing thing is you would see him out there in Charlotte or at any point in his NBA career, and it was kind of a marvel. Him and Spud Webb. I mean, look, I'm short, Bob. So I mean, I like short guys, and I can't imagine how devastating he must have been at 14, 15, or 16, running around with kids his own age who were not his size, who he probably took as much abuse verbally on the court as anyone until he actually went by you, right?
Yeah, I mean, he had to encounter the jokes and so forth about his size, but I think he stopped all the giggling and innuendos about his size by his court awareness, court savvy, and the style of play. He was tremendous player at such a young age and small in height. He was a menace on the court, and he gained the respect of his teammates and the community.
He is Bob Wade, longtime head coach at Dunbar and, of course, at the University of Maryland, and spent a couple of decades here as a city employee. What was the last things you were doing here? Because you have always worked on behalf of the city, on behalf of kids in need, on behalf of getting kids education and keeping them off the street, and making them, better people. When I think of your life arc, that's all you've kind of ever done, right? I mean, has been a part of this thing, and now you sort of exited out the side door of the public life, but I'm sure that you get called all the time, not just by guys like me or Bobby Sablehouse about telling old stories, but to be involved, right?
Yeah, I get those calls, but I had an opportunity to serve as the superintendent of recreation parks under Mayor Curdell Smoke, former Mayor Curdell Smoke. Did that for maybe 6 years, and then I got another call from Mayor Smoke to move back over to education and oversee the interscholastic athletic program. At that time, Baltimore City had just joined, Baltimore City Schools had just joined the State Athletic Association, the Maryland Public Secondary School Athletic Association, moving from the old MSA into the State Athletic Association.
Yeah, where you can win a real state championship, because when I was back in the 80s and early 90s when I worked at the paper, that was not the case, and I never knew why it was so fractured, I always thought, like, it's a shame that Dundalk would never play Dunbar, right, or Lake Clifton or any of the city schools.
Yes, and so I moved back over to education, and 19 years later, I'm retired from that position. So, but it was a very rewarding experience. I got an opportunity to meet fellow other athletic programs throughout the state, interact with other coordinators and supervisors of athletics throughout the state, and develop tremendous friendships. So it was a great opportunity working with Ned Sparks and the State Athletic Association. Just a tremendous experience. He's a very knowledgeable person. Helped me out a lot dealing with legislative issues. But it was just a tremendous experience.
Well, the story will be told on ESPN. It is the 30 for 30 episode called Baltimore Boys. Bob Wade is our guest. He's in the middle of this, as is Muggsy and Reggie and David and all the guys that we remember, Gary Graham amongst others back in the 1980s. You can check it out. I'm sure it's going to run many, many times. If you don't catch it this week, you'll catch it somewhere down the line. Bob, I'm glad I caught you, man. I appreciate you returning the call, and keep up the great work out there. Try to enjoy your retirement. I tried to retire once. And it's like the mafia. They brought me back in. So here I am, 32 years later, still doing this crazy thing. But it's always a pleasure to check in with you. If I can ever help you guys here in the city, let me know, okay?
Thank you so much, Nestor.
You got it. Bob Wade, one of the good ones there, longtime Dunbar poet, as well as a Morgan State bearer as well, and checking in semi-retirement. He's probably the guy out there with a fishing pole. I don't know what he's doing, but probably helping people. That's all Bob ever did. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world you happen to be. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and planetfitness.com, where you can get in shape for $10 a month. It's the best deal going. You can learn more and get some inspiration at planetoftriumphs.com. Last but never least, if there's any breaking news, and that's usually bad news out of Owings Mills this time of year, but it does happen first on the WNST Tech Service. If there's any signings, comings, goings, no rumors, no fake news, it is the WNST Tech Service. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis will be here on Thursday, driving you home with the SSV on WNST from 3 until 5. I am Nestor. I am a very available individual. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. If you're going to London for the Ravens game, you want to party with us on Saturday, we are putting together a phenomenal Saturday for you in advance of the game out in East London. So I'll have some details for that coming up for you. You'll see them on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and of course we stream live on our Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel, and you never know when. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.